Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. Mike's just made our MC redundant by introducing me. Well, I don't know what I've got left to say. Mike's pretty much said it all. I'm standing here right now for one reason, and only one reason, because I'm very afraid of the future Australia that my daughters are going to inherit. They're going to inherit it from me, and they're going to inherit it from you. We're all jointly responsible. I don't believe the current two-party system is working well enough to ensure that my girls will have a safe future, and I won't accept that. We all have probably lived through the safest, most prosperous, most comfortable period in human history, and unfortunately I don't believe that the next generation is going to be left in the same situation. And our political leaders must shoulder some of the responsibility for this. They've been steering the ship. Now, I'm a fairly simple man, and I take a simple view of what others may paint as overly complicated. And look, I know nobody is perfect, as my wife reminds me reasonably frequently, but it is time that we should expect and demand more of our political leaders. We must demand that our politicians put the people and the country before their party, and this we are not getting at the moment. We must demand that they are courageous enough to speak their mind without fear of offending their own party and noisy, screaming, vocal minority groups. We must demand that they do not hurt people who don't deserve it. We must demand they do not associate with bad people. We must demand that they withstand pressure from big business and their well-paid lobbyists. In other words, we must demand that they start to represent us, the people of Australia. So why one nation? Because the overriding principle within One Nation's culture is to represent the people, not the party. This is written into our constitution, unlike any other political party in Australia. Once in a while you'll hear other political parties, leaders of other parties say they're going to give their members, their MPs, a conscience vote. Well, for God's sake, so what are all the other votes they have? Unconscionable votes? In One Nation, in our entire history, we have never once told our MPs how to vote in Parliament. They are there to represent the people that elected them. They are not there to represent One Nation. Now, I believe many of our current leaders are nothing short of traitors. How many thousands of Australian servicemen and women have died over the last 100 years? Fighting for this country, to keep it great, free and prosperous, and to give us the ability to pursue happiness. Even as we speak, right here tonight in this safety and comfort, we have Australian men and women overseas fighting for the freedom of others, for God's sake. Yet even as they are placing their lives on the line right now, back here at home, our politicians are stabbing everything they fight for in the back. Our gutless politicians are selling off Australia to the highest bidder as fast as they can. And even worse, they are rolling over and assisting the current invasion of our own country via Christmas Island. Our once proud Navy, which we paid for with our tax dollars, which was designed to defend this country, is, due to the orders they get from our politicians, are now actually assisting the invasion of our country. And I've spoken to servicemen and they don't like doing it. Everything is for sale. Water, power, telecommunications, railways, and now, as we know recently, the running of our hospitals. Sold to the highest bidder in the name of free markets and competition. I'm sure we all remember when Peter Beattie, PowerPoint Pete, told us all that once he privatised the power distribution, none of us would pay a cent more for power. Well, I'd like to ask how many people are paying less for their power now than they were 4 or 5 years ago, or 1 year ago, or 3 months ago? None of us. Coles and Woolworths have a stranglehold on Australian retail industry. They control 70%. We also import 70% of the food we eat. And at the same time, our farmers are going broke. The small family-run farm is almost a part of history now. Now, can't anybody see there's something wrong with this? I just don't see any competition. I see a monopoly by big business. And how many of us still have a local corner store? 50 years ago, everybody had a corner store. They don't exist anymore. Big business reigns supreme over everything that happens in this country. This is the same big business donates millions of dollars to our two major political parties. Profits is all that counts. Nothing else, profits. And to hell with the average man who's trying to care for his family. Most people have a job, but even with an income, they struggle to make ends meet. They struggle to meet the ever-increasing costs of power, water, fuel, all local commodities, mind you. And ever higher taxes. We pay among the highest taxes in the world. And if that's not enough to make sure we suffer enough, we also pay the highest interest rates in the world. And I would ask you, is this the end result of good government?
Definitely not.
Criminals are walking free to reoffend. Our judges and our parole boards live in a fantasy world. And our political leaders are quite happy not to ask why. I want political leaders that will ask, why are rapists and murderers being paroled, only to reoffend? We need leaders who will not sell off the family farm. We need leaders who will not bow down to cashed-up business and their well-paid lobbyists who represent only selfish interests. We need leaders who are something that's in short commodity these days. It's called patriots. Now, you know, patriotism is not a dirty word. It's time to start supporting Australians and Australian industries first. They must have the priority. One Nation would train our young people with the skills they need to get a job. We will reinvigorate the apprenticeship scheme, as Mike mentioned previously. One Nation would insist that government bodies buy only Australian-made cars. I saw the 4:30 news this afternoon. Kim Carr, the Minister for Industry, said they will now start trying to insist that government bodies buy Australian-made cars. So he's obviously been reading our website. They would issue contracts to Australian companies, and I don't care if it costs a little bit more. It's an investment in Australian business and Australian jobs. I would, if necessary, bring back tariffs. We need to help even up the very uneven playing field that our businesses, our exporters and our farmers are playing on. Over the last 20 years, our various governments have signed up to various free trade agreements. The worst one of all is the free trade agreement we have with the United States. Only a total idiot would have signed these agreements. It gives every opportunity to our trading partners, and it restricts the opportunities of our own exporters here in Australia. They are nothing short of madness. Research them, have a look at our free trade agreement with America. It gives us nothing. Nothing. I would not allow our two major retailers to carry out unfair practices which unfairly hurt our small retail businesses in Australia. We all know the system. They set up a big Woolworths in a small country town, drop the prices right down to the bottom, put all the local businesses out of town, then the prices go up again. That's what I call unfair practices. I would have that stopped. I would also have an inquiry into the fuel pricing system in Australia. If necessary, a royal commission. We are self-sufficient in fuel in Australia. We do not import our fuel. We produce our own fuel here. We pay among the highest prices in the world for fuel. It is not necessary. We've had reviews of the fuel pricing before. These panels that did these reviews, they had the results written down before they even sat down to start the review. I believe we would benefit from the reintroduction of a People's Bank. We once had a People's Bank.
It's called Bendigo.
It's a start. We had a People's Bank, and it served Australia very, very well, especially during and just after the Second World War. That was called the Commonwealth Bank, and it was well named, Commonwealth. Of course, that's been privatised now, and it's just as bad as the other major banks. There is no competition in the banking system, and we need to change it. I want a government that looks after the sick, the disadvantaged, and the genuinely needy. And I mean genuinely needy, not just the noisy and the greedy. I want a government that does not allow our standards in behaviour, respect, morals, and common decency to continue to fall. I want a government that cares about me and I want a government that cares about my children. The strength of our nation is and must be built on a strong, happy, stable and traditional family unit. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what One Nation stands for. Thank you.